Good evening and welcome to the Maplewood City Council Manager Workshop. City Clerk Sint, would you do the roll call for us, please?
Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
And Mayor Abrams.
I am here as well. Council members, is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have to do this by roll call because Councilmember Villavicencio is joining us virtually. So let's do the roll call. Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Juniman. Aye. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
And I say aye as well, so that motion passes. Next, I am going to switch my hat, and I am going to put on the Economic Development Authority President's hat, and I am going to call our EDA meeting to order. And we all serve as commissioners on the EDA. So let's see, we're called to order. City Clerk Sint, would you do the roll call for us, please?
Commissioner Cave.
Here.
Commissioner Juniman.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, here.
Commissioner Villavicencio.
Here.
Sorry.
President Abrams.
I'm here as well, thank you. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve our EDA agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve our agenda for the Maplewood EDA meeting, our special meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's do roll call. Commissioner Cave.
Aye.
Commissioner Juniman.
Aye.
Commissioner Villavicencio.
Aye.
And Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
And I say aye as well. The motion for the agenda is passed. Moving on. For me? Oh, okay. There you go. All right, moving on to the approval of our minutes. Commissioners, is there a motion for the approval for our last minutes for the EDA? That would be the July 14th EDA meeting.
I move approval. Excuse me, I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the minutes for the July 14th, 2025 EDA meeting. Is there any further discussion? Okay, then roll call. Commissioner Cave.
Aye.
Commissioner Juniman.
Aye.
Commissioner Villavicencio.
Aye.
Commissioner Lee.
I abstain.
And I vote aye as well. That motion carries for our minutes. And now we have joined together, we have a concurrent meeting of our City Council Manager Workshop and our EDA Authority. And I want to give a special thanks to our City Clerk Sint for helping us with these concurrent meetings so that we can procedurally keep these very clear. You do a really nice job on helping us organize that. So we will go to our agendas. Mr. Sable.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, Mayor, and council members and commissioners. Good evening. We are here to talk about our economic development strategy document. As you know, from in August of last year, we really started this conversation and journey around what does economic development look like in Maplewood. We engaged with Thrive Consulting in February of this year. And it was intended to be kind of a journey and a path towards getting to where we're coming to, where this is the we have one more step after this, and then we can actually get to start to work. But this is an opportunity. So we have what in front of you is a draft economic development strategy document. It is the culmination of a lot of conversations in this room and a lot of really high-quality staff work with Danette Parr and her team. And so what we think we are really going to kind of go through is to try to walk through some of the pieces within the plan, make sure that it reflects the conversations that you've had. We'll talk at a high level on some of the budget items, and then if all goes well and it's consistent with what you've seen and read, then we would bring this back for your consideration at the next EDA meeting. And so I'm going to turn it over to Danette Parr for kind of a walkthrough.
Thank you, City Manager Sable. Good evening, Madam President, members of the EDA. We're just going to walk through, we hate to read slides to you, so we're not going to do that this evening, but we'll go as deep as you like in looking at each of these. If you've had a chance to look at it, great. If you haven't, let's go through it. Much of this on the overheads will look very familiar to you because many of the things that are in here are directly from you. And if they don't, we should talk about that. So we'll walk right on through these. This is just a little bit of an introduction that talks about the plan. If you have not read it, I won't read it to you, but if you have not read it, take some time to read it. If you feel like there's anything in there that you would like to wordsmith or you would like to see changed, let City Manager Sable or myself know, and we will take that into account as we move forward for the 25th. And if anybody wants to read through these, I'm happy to do that. Just give me the look, okay? All right. Demographics, high-level demographics, which are very typically as part of any strategic plan. The economic characteristics are listed there as well. Stop me if you want to walk through any specifically. Obviously, we always, the one document that kind of says it all for us is our comprehensive plan. So Brianne has added in the bottom some specific things related to our comprehensive plan. This is really the third version. City Manager Sable and I have kind of gone back and forth after hearing what you've been saying. We've kind of worked with Brianne and gotten to where it is today. So like I said, don't hesitate to stop us if you want to talk through anything further. The market assets. And then this is the part you probably remember very well. We spent a number of meetings on mission, vision, and values. And this really speaks specifically to the things that you discussed and what was born out of that. And then the EDA vision, I'll read that. Maplewood is a vibrant, thriving city of choice, driving economic vitality, expanding diverse housing, nurturing vibrant neighborhoods, and promoting sustainable environment, while fostering a community that reflects opportunity and a passion for its future. I think there's one tweak we need to make there.
There's an edit.
And it's
The
an
A
easy
is
one, but I'm not
misplaced.
quite sure why that got through us.
Promoting a
Dang it, I had to pick
sustainable.
that one to read tonight. Dang it. Okay, moving on, we'll fix that. So that really informs those goals and strategies. Here's those goals. Strong and growing job centers, understand market potential and build on it, a strong partner in new development and redevelopment, growth in existing small businesses, we heard that loud and clear, leverage outside resources, housing that is safe, healthy, and contributes to household wealth, and then the labor market skills matching the workforce demands. And then when we work through each of these strategies, there are priority action items, and this speaks directly into the time frame. This particularly is 1 to 3 years. Should we talk these through each of these? Okay. Strategy number 1, develop new supports to encourage residents and property owners to invest in their properties. So this would be a 1 to 3 year priority action. Create, approve, and administer a revolving loan fund for housing rehabilitation. You've seen this preliminarily. We're expecting to bring it back to you in September. There's an awful lot that happens in the back office, so to speak. Neighborhood Works is our partner that we're going to be hopefully, if you're on board with that, they're the ones that we've talked about previously, and we'll be back in September to give you the specifics on that. Strategy 2, develop a unified funding plan for strategic investments in land, demolition, and redevelopment pursuits. This is obviously underway to some extent, but this is a 1 to 3 years. Create a fund for strategic land acquisition, demolition, and redevelopment opportunities. We've seen that really be effective in our Gladstone neighborhood, as you all know, and we'd like to extrapolate that further in some other areas, including the North End, and some strategic places that you called out when we did our tour in the fall. B is listed as pursue grants for redevelopment from DEED, LCDA, Ramsey County, and others. As you know, we've got over $14.5 million in grants that we've been able to obtain on behalf or with our partners for development and other things. We'd like to see that grow. And then C, participate in economic mobility opportunity program through ICMA and pursue opportunities that arise from that work that's well underway. And we'll be back in the future to talk about more of that with the council as well. Anyone have anything specifically, or we'll keep going? If you want to come on back, we can. Okay. Strategy 3, understand and provide support for growth in 3 existing job centers with a focus on sector-specific growth. So these are 1 to 3 years. Update our comprehensive plan. This needs to be done. Obviously, our 2050, this is required by state statute. So we're going to make that a dynamic process with our community and have a document that reflects what we need for the future, which needs to be updated for what we have right now. B, complete zoning analysis and amendments in and around job centers to encourage mixed use and housing development there. We always see an evolution over time, and we just need to keep up with that for the marketplace. That's really what that's speaking to. Complete zoning analysis and amendments for missing middle and senior housing and in RFPs. We need to maybe adjust the language there slightly on that one as well. And then D, complete developer RFP for former Moose Lodge property. We had some things specifically that we wanted accomplished in the Gladstone neighborhood before we move forward with that in previous conversations. That's largely underway or even complete in a couple cases. So we would expect maybe late fall, we'd be coming back and starting the conversation about RFPs. We know there's an interest in the site. Some of the interest, they're just waiting to see what we come up with for the RFP. So we'll be bringing that back to you. Strategy 4, active participation and partnership for reuse and infill of Maplewood Mall and surrounding areas. This is 1 to 3 years as well. Complete small area plans, development plans for Maplewood Mall and surrounding areas. And the second one there is meet with mall owners to develop relationships, engage interest in partnership. So that's an area where we know from looking at others that have been highly successful in looking at overparked areas. There's a couple different strategies. One is you've got infill. We know we have some adjacent commercial areas where they have far too much parking. The standards for today are different than they were then. And we have great and improving transportation modes there that are really particular to the north end in particular. So there really is clearly areas where we can have infill development, more housing. It's more of that lifestyle, right? And so these speak to that specifically. Strategy 5, identify what financing tools the EDA would consider and what criteria is used to evaluate. This is a 1 to 3 year as well. This is evaluate and explore tax increment financing district for North End, greater area. That has been started to some extent. We know we have $1 million, that pooling from the 3M area. We'll talk more about that a little bit later when we talk about the EDA budget. The development of a one-pager flyer and updated website landing page to connect businesses with existing resources. There's a number of, we've done a number of things in that area, but there's more we can do. Some of it may involve outside resources, so we want to really dedicate to that. Market outside funding opportunities and connect businesses with existing resources. We feel like we could utilize some communication mechanisms to do that better than we do it currently with our businesses. We know there's opportunities there. In talking to our businesses, we know there's some things that we can do to step that up a little bit to be more responsive in regards to people that are entrepreneurs that maybe aren't even here yet that we want to work with. And then that last one is present a list of tools that the EDA would consider and develop policy for when those tools will be considered. So there's a number of things that we don't currently utilize that the EDA may want to consider. And as we move forward, we'll talk about that. Sometimes that has to do with mechanisms related to supporting businesses when they come in and they maybe need assistance with sewer area charges. If we have any extra ones that we currently track right now, could we, if we wanted to focus on a particular user, want to help them out? We're the pass-through to the Met Council for those funds, but if we have funds available that we could utilize towards that, that's something the EDA would likely want to consider. That's just an example. Okay? We'll keep moving. Strategy 6, 7, and 8, these are medium to long term, so after 3 years of time. Inventory and analysis of existing land uses and potential reuse of vacant or blighted properties. Obviously, our comp plan comes into play there. Sometimes, especially when we're looking for financial resources to assist us, if it's in a plan, particularly if it's in our comp plan, that helps us. Sometimes from a scoring perspective at the county or state level, but also just so people understand this isn't a fly-by-night plan. This is a long-term plan, and it's worth investing in. We've put it in writing, basically that this is our intention. Strategy 7, expanded business retention, expansion, and attraction program in partnership with the chamber. We do it to some extent now. The mayor and I go out. We're looking to expand that in another way, potentially, which we'd want to talk about with the EDA in the future if we chose to do that. Strategy 8 is deepen focus and collaboration with our ED agencies, Ramsey County, and local businesses to provide programs that address industry-specific workforce needs. We know that the workforce needs are changing, and we want to be able to be responsive to that. So the actual implementation of it, the really fun part. Without that, it's just a plan, right? And so it's really important that we are doing things that actually get it moving, which brings us to, I hate to say it, but it comes back to the resources. We try to do a lot. We try to do a lot with a limited number of people and resources. So we've tried to call out so you have a better idea of what it is we mean when we put these things out there. We want you to know what's the cost, what's the need associated with it. Some of it can be covered by others. Some of it we can try to get covered by others, but sometimes if we really want to do it, we need to just say, this is what we're dedicated to doing. Obviously, if we had an EDA levy, like many communities do, that gives us a larger bandwidth because it's not specific to only land acquisition. It can be used for that, but it can be used for all the other things that fall under that EDA umbrella as well. So that gives us the largest bang for our buck, so to speak. But we're going to walk through these real quick if you like.
Councilmember Cave has a question.
Certainly.
I didn't know you were going to walk through all of them. I did have a question on 3A, though, if we could jump to it. It's a comprehensive plan. It just seems like $300,000 for a plan that's pretty much, I mean, it might need to be tweaked, but, a lot of things are already set in there. Is that something we can look at pricing cheaper, or is that a set price, or?
Mr. Sable.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President and Commissioner Cave. So the comprehensive plan is a requirement in state statute that we have to do every 10 years. The Metropolitan Council drives that discussion, and they create these statements around various things that we have to address, whether it's around transportation, around population, around water. And so they sort of set the threshold for what they want you to do and research and write up. And then historically, because it's a big task and it's a lot of maps and a lot of data and a lot of writing, that's not something that city staff have typically done. And so you hire an outside consultant that does this. And right, I'll say that I can count on two hands the number of people who do it. They typically charge around the same price. I do think with the invention of artificial intelligence and the way that our data works, that there's significant portions of it that we could probably do ourselves, but there's still some intricate use of GIS layering that probably requires a little bit of professional help. And so I say all that to say I think there's a way that we could do it for less. And I'll also just note that, and Danette and I had this conversation about a week ago, we have not seen any city submit a plan that has been accepted by the Met Council in its first try. That you submit your report and they come back and they say, well, you need to make these 11 changes and then we'll consider it again. And so it is a moving target, but I am reasonably confident we can do it for less than 300, but I can't guarantee it.
And a follow-up question. So if we do it every 10 years and then we come across like the north end that we're like, hey, we're making changes that we made before, but now it's a whole new look. How much does that cost to update our comp plan when we take something like just the north end and redo it?
Madam President, EDA Member Cave, that's a great question. If I expand further on the north end piece of it, I would say that in the cases where we know we've got transformation likely coming, we're going to try to be proactive and address that transformation in a thoughtful way in advance so that the EDA and the council and we can send forth a document for the Met Council to hopefully adopt that is more meaningful, right? We know that this round is going to be trickier than some of the previous 10-year rounds because we know there's going to probably be some density changes. With housing in particular, they're going to be looking closely to make sure everyone's taking the appropriate, in their mind, the appropriate amount of density. And that's where I think the challenge comes in to what our City Manager Sable said previously, it is somewhat of an update. This time, we're going to try to minimize it and use the tools that we have now. The other thing, it's unknown. We didn't have that tool last time we did this, right? So it may be far less than that. We don't really know. But I don't want to come back to you and say 150, great, and come back and say, well, I guess it's actually 400. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
So maybe we're being on the high side, but we're trying to be thoughtful about it. Some of those things, the north end in particular, I would expect we're going to be looking at some changes. This is due to the Met Council in 2028. The end of December, we have to have our plan into them. So we have some time ahead, but that's not a lot of time when you talk about the things that maybe need to be done in advance in preparation for that.
Yeah.
The conversations with our residents, the planning around this. So, and it includes all of our departments throughout the city, not just the planning CD department. We're stewards for all of the departments. So it's a bigger lift, but hopefully we won't need that full amount.
Okay, thank you.
I would just recall back to the 2040 comp plan. We hired a consultant for that, and I recall thinking that's a lot of money, but that was the best money spent. We had so many public meetings that are necessarily required in order to put this together. The document itself is a full 3-ring binder that is one of the thick ones, not like what we have tonight. It is probably triple this. And I do know that the Met Council added sustainability as another criteria that we don't have right now. We are a very sustainable city and focus on that, but we didn't have to report it in now the new requirements that the Met Council is making. And I think, too, I agree with Danette that that's a very good point, that we're going to have some really big changes when it comes to the north end and what we've got. So I looked at that number and thought that's probably a do not exceed that number, but we don't have staff to do it. And on the other hand, I do know that there are many cities who did not get theirs adopted the first time by the Met Council, and we did. I believe we did. Did we have to do any? I don't think we had to do any
I'm not
changes.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay.
I don't recall that we had to do any changes. And so, we had a very experienced consultant that helped lead, and it's really helping the community put this together within the framework that the Met Council sets out. So it's a huge planning document that, it's a lot of work. It just, it's amazing to me.
Madam
Barb.
President, I'll add one thing. If I were putting on my Ron Beatty hat, which I try not to do very often, but if I was, I would also tell you it's the one document that gives you the most power in regards to the final destiny of your land uses. So we have people come in here all the time that want to, I shouldn't say all the time, but we have people come in here often that want to do something specific to change the land use, or they want a conditional use permit. And sometimes we don't have, the council doesn't have a lot that we can do to say no to that, especially a CUP. There's some things in law that restrict you from doing everything you might want to do. The comp plan, it's a document that you have more ability to say, no, that's not the vision we have, and we're just not going to allow that. The finding of fact isn't exactly the same, the level of scrutiny in regards to that. So I just add that. And normally, when you look at a $300,000, you normally wouldn't see that. In the wisdom of our city manager, there's a recognition that maybe it's better over time to be putting 15, 20, 30,000 aside every year. We talk about that 10-year plan. Our finance director and city manager and I have talked about this numerous times. In the future, we may want to consider doing something differently to allow it to be a little less painful all at once. So there'll be more of a conversation on that as well.
Thank you. Excellent questions.
Would you like to walk through this, or do you feel like there's an understanding here of what all these are?
I felt like there was that I had an understanding about it. I did have one question about 3C, incorporating accommodations for missing middle. That's not a term unless you pay attention to what the legislature's been talking about. Missing middle and senior housing and zoning and RFPs. What are you thinking in that regard? The missing middle.
Well, I'll take, Madam President, Commissioners, and mayor and council members, because we're doing this at the same time. There's been a lot of conversations at the Minnesota legislature about having the state take a preemptive role in local zoning, where they would say that you, by right, could be able to build multifamily housing in a commercial area if it's zoned that way, or they would set sort of zoning preemption changes. It's been put forward 2 consecutive years of the legislature, and both times it has failed to come forward. Like lots of policy issues, sometimes the third time is a charm, and we expect the legislature to take action as their coalition for more housing comes forward. And so this is an anticipated item. We think the legislature is going to do something. We have to be prepared to write and respond to the changes that they're going to put forward. So this is, in a perfect world, there would be local control over housing, and we'd be able to chart our own course and continue to be successful in the things that we have done, but we also know that the legislature is likely to make some changes, and we'll have to adapt to it. But I do want to go back to the comprehensive plan discussion, and I differ a little bit in, I understand that there are some legal requirements and things that we have to do, but every city in the state is supposed to, the 7-county metro, is it a statewide requirement, or is it 7-county metro-wide?
7-county metro.
7-county metro,
Yep.
thank you. I was just clarifying that. There are a lot of cities in that group, and so a lot of them, do smaller plans versus larger plans and more robust plans. And so I do think at the staff level, there's an opportunity for us to say, what do we really have to comply with in order to meet this? Because we're going to have to do it again 10 years after that and 10 years after that. And so are there elements that we can narrow down in order to make some of the cost changes a little bit more manageable?
Thank you.
All right, in the next slide, you can see the timing and responsible party for the priority action item. We just wanted to, some of this, obviously it's dependent on funding sources, it's dependent on if there's a levy, it's dependent on a number of things, but we wanted to give an idea of what this could look like if we went full charge. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So this just gives you an idea of the time frame and the responsible party in relation to it. Any questions specific to any of these that you want to discuss this evening?
No, I don't see any.
All right. And then the appendix, which lays out the data summary, the analysis related to some of the demographics about the community, household types, and this.
Councilmember Cave has a question.
I have a question on the chart, one before that. When it gets down to other services, what is other services? What's contained in other services? It's near the bottom.
Madam President, EDA member Cave, I think I'm going to have to clarify that. We did talk to Brianne specifically about this, and so I just want to make sure the breakdown is right
Okay.
before I say it. There's a number of things that make that up, so I don't want to give you the specifics and have
Okay.
the percentages be off, but I can
Okay.
tell you what they are in
Okay.
short order.
Thank
A
you.
question about that as well, about that particular chart.
Yep.
At the beginning, on Maplewood's demographics, it talks about, we have 26,000 employees, but on this chart, it looks like we have 31,986. Is there, I don't know who might not be included in that? If that's a typo, or, do you see where I'm struggling?
Where's the first chart you're referring to for the
I'm
comparison?
looking at Maplewood's demographics. It's page 7 of 206 in our council packet. The very first sentence, we've got over 42,000 residents and 26,000 employees. And then if you look at this chart, we have 31,000 employees, if I'm reading that correctly.
I will go ahead and reconcile that.
Okay, thanks.
it makes me think we ought to look at, towards the end here, there's one that has the, let me, jobs. Okay.
Yeah, we can confirm with the charts, because there's,
Yeah.
part of the challenge is that we're using quarterly census data from the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development for one data set and the U.S. Census for another data set. So we'll make sure that we just source them correctly, just as
Yep.
the variability is there.
I appreciate that.
I'm
It
looking
just-
at I'm actually looking at the source footnotes, and then I'm seeing the discrepancies in real time. So we'll clean up both
Okay,
charts to match.
thanks.
Thank you for catching that. This particular slide was for the purpose of really illustrating, this is one that it's really dramatic in regards to the visual. You can see it, right? So it gives the opportunity to understand that infill development potential and underutilized parking areas in a really obvious way.
It does look like a football field.
All right, and then the rest of the demographics, if you have any other comments, let me know, or let City Manager Sable know. But I think most of these, we'll have to go back and verify that everything, as far as the sources, reconcile, but
And Mayor, you said something just interesting. You said it looks like a football field. In reality, it is 75 football fields large. The Maplewood Mall was about 100 acres. 100 acres translates into 75 football fields.
Wow, okay.
So, a lot of opportunity.
Lot of opportunity there. Maybe we could do a football field. No. That was just an offhanded comment. I apologize for that, but there's a lot of parking there. Yeah.
thank you, Madam President, members of the EDA. If you have any other comments or things you'd like to discuss in relation to it, please feel free to reach out to City Manager Sable or myself, and we'll be happy to help in whatever way is helpful.
Thank you. Okay, I believe now, that was the workshop in EDA. Could currently proceed to unfinished business. Councilmember Juniman.
This might be nitpicky, but if you look at the cover of this economic development strategic plan, that's a little Canada maple leaf. We probably shouldn't be using that.
Say that again?
The cover,
Oh,
that is the little Canada maple leaf.
okay, that's another good point. That's what this is all about, is going through this, so thank you for pointing that out. All right. Let's see. Now we are moving on to the EDA budget discussion.
I'll kick it off.
Mr. Sabal.
Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners and Mayor and Council members. Actually, it's just Madam President and Commissioners. It's still concurrent. Okay, great. So it's still concurrent. We're doing both things.
I know.
You know, as part of when we talk about the Economic Development Strategic Plan, as Danette mentioned, as Ms. Parr mentioned, that it's only as good as the tools that you have to implement them. And so one of the requirements is that, one of the things that we're seeing increases in revenue in local affordable housing aid dollars. We've seen influx of flexibility with our pooled TIF that we had from the 3M district that can be used now in the north end. We're starting to see pockets of resources coming in from other spots, and so we're starting to see more revenues coming in and more opportunities to do things. What we haven't done historically is built a budget to support those new changing revenues. And the EDA does have the authority to also levy its own dollars separate and apart from the city council. It's one of the benefits of wearing multiple hats. And so there's a conversation of, do you want to consider an economic development authority levy that is specifically to furthering the implementation of the strategic plan and the goals? And so we thought it would be good conversation to say what types of budget that you would want to have or need in order to implement these things. And I'll bring you back to August of last year. Stacy Kulvang from Ellers talked about cities that want to be active participants in economic development often build up, she termed as a war chest, but it was the resources and tools to proactively step into a project or a problem area and make an investment either in an acquisition or a demolition. And that in order to be considered, engaged in that, her term was you need about $5 million. And you can do it overnight, but we certainly wouldn't recommend doing it overnight. But building a system in place to have tools so that when there's an opportunity that presents itself, you can grab it. And so I've asked Joe Rube to kind of put together a fairly simple chart. It's complicated and there's a lot of pieces in it, but at the end of the day, trying to put together kind of a color scheme that says, if you want to get to this number, here is the strategy that gets there. And then we also have some items on there about here's some revenues that are coming in, here's some potential expenses. But this, I would consider this sort of a really high-level consideration of an EDA discussion. So,
Mr. Rube.
Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners. So the attachment that was included in your packet is just a 10-year outlook on what we kind of project things to be. So it includes the actual for 2023, 2024, estimated where we plan to be in 2025. So you'll see in 24, 25, there's miscellaneous revenue of 650 up to 841,000. But then if you look on the next section lower for the expenditures, there's also some fees for services. What those end up tying to are the deed cleanup grants and the LCDA grants that were submitted or used in the last 24 and 25. So they're complete pass-throughs. I just wanted to point that out since they are big figures. Outside of that, looking towards 2026 to 2035, we did keep our the LAHA money or funding at the same level. That can change based off of the amount of sales tax that it collects from year to year. So, and from year to year, that can vary. And will be certified for the following year. So kept that pretty steady just because we don't know if it'll go up or down. Hopefully it'll continue to grow, but we left that at the 587,000. And then for taxes, that would be part of the tax levy. So 636,000 equates to about 2% of our levy for looking into 2026. So no magical number there. We just kind of picked a 2%. Just to kind of see what it would look like. And then we did include a transfer in of $1 million. That could be from our general fund surplus if we wanted to take a look at that. As you're aware.
Mr. Sable?
Madam President, Commissioners, the chart in the attachment does not reflect that.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the live chart that I have. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so there isn't $1 million.
We're all up here looking very carefully going, are we missing something? If the numbers are little, should I get my glasses out here?
It's a
Did I
magical
miss that?
$1 million.
Okay,
Sorry,
so,
thank you, Sable. All right, so on the document that you're looking at, the spreadsheet, does not have $1 million. But we have between Ms. Power, Mr. Sable, myself, looking at different options and all that stuff. So on here, it does not have any transfers in of $1 million. But like I said, we're constantly thinking of different ideas of how we can help grow this and help the community. So, and then as you look down at the lower section for the expenditures, going forward for 2026 and on, we just put $100,000 approximately, nothing magical there, just kind of taking a look at it. And then the interfund loan has to do with the Moose Lodge building. So back in 2019, that was set up as an interfund loan with the sanitary sewer fund. We did need to start paying back the interest on that and then principal payments in 2024. So you see that big lump sum of $151,499, and that's interest only. Going forward, the $85,000, $83,000, $82,000 are ongoing interest payments. In the event that we do sell that property, we will be able to close up this loan quicker, and then the EDA won't be paying us the interest going forward, which would be great. So at the bottom of it, it starts off with the fund balance from prior years, and then have it set up in the live system. I'd love to show you sometime if you like, but once we get into the $5 million mark, it actually changes the chart to green, so we know we're in a good spot, kind of where our goal is. We can ultimately change that goal, whatever the council and EDA wants, but we can, yes, so we can adjust that how we want. So you'll see in 25, 26, 27, we are under $4 million, so I have that as kind of red, that there's not a whole lot we can do with it. Once we get to between the $4 and $5 million mark, it goes into the yellow, and then at 5 million and higher. So on this, in your attachment, you'll see in 2029, we are at $5.5 million in fund balance at the end of the year, and that is with the projected revenues that we'll receive as well as some expenditures at this point.
Mr. Sable.
So, thank you, Madam President and Commissioners. One of the things that we're trying to forecast out is, I think it's appropriate that we actually do build out an EDA budget, that we set aside some portions of our dollars that we can use to fund these activities, whether it's, preparing pitch packets for developers, or whether we need to do small area plan studies or things in certain pockets of the community. It's good to have all those things in advance, because if you don't have the authority established, it just makes the decision-making and the approval process that much simpler when you have set aside a high-level budget that gives us some tools to take action. As Joe noted, there's an item called transfers in, and this is I'll get into this conversation actually in 2 weeks when we talk about the city's budget. So right now, the city has a policy for fund balance to be between 35 and 50% of expenses, that you have sort of cash on hand if something goes, if you need it, you have it. It's actually a recommendation from the state auditor's office, and good financial policy. Our current fund balance exceeds that amount, and so there is an opportunity to potentially shift a portion of that to the EDA to jumpstart a potential fund balance in the EDA. And so again, there's no magic formula, there's no number, but there is an opportunity to jumpstart the work. And so we just want to give you the sense that that transfer in category can be an important starting point. And then again, you can fill it in with local affordable housing aid. You could do it with tax levy. You could do it with sales of property is another item that's there. So there are opportunities, but it's a good thing to talk about now so we can be prepared. So when we get to the first meeting in September and the first meeting in December, we have a clear plan for 2026 and beyond.
I rather like that idea of a transfer in from our fund balance so that we can fund the EDA, and then that might reduce what we have to do in terms of an EDA levy. That if, we have the fund balance already, rather than just let that fund balance stay where it is and then levy for all of it, it just seems to me to be a better balance. And look at that. I don't know what other council members think. I'm going to ask, well, first let me go to commissioners. Commissioner Villavicencio, is there anything that you have any questions about or any comments that you want to make?
No, I have no questions or comments at this point.
Okay, just want to check with you. Okay, Commissioner Cave.
I agree also that I want to look at that fund balance, that's something we can look at. An option is to use it for the EDA. I don't know when we get the budget, if there's anything else that we have, but that would be a viable place to put it. What else was I'm sorry. I was also going to talk, I thought the EDA levy is a good idea. I remember when that lady came, like I said, and spoke to us, and I thought we were pretty good having, 200,000 in our coffers, and she was more like into the millions because you really can't do anything. After adjusting myself and seeing that we really do need to look at something like that to be players in a game, and then seeing potential that we have, Danette, you showed us tons of areas that really need redevelopment and bringing new life to Maplewood. Maplewood Mall, huge thing to bring new life to, and it's not cheap, but it's not going to be that crazily expensive either to to get things going there. And I think once you get things going, kind of like Gladstone, you get the momentum going and things happen. And we have to have funds to do that, and I think we have the best team to be able to take us in that direction. So I'm very much in favor of the EDA levy. And then I'm also, also with the EDA levy, we talked about, interfund loans. Another thing I had, if we do pay off our interfund loan, is that something that we look at as using as a tool in other situations, or is it kind of a one-off for future projects? Is it not really a great idea to use?
Mr. Rube, do you have an answer to that?
Madam President and Commissioners, it is something that back in 2019, when we were trying to figure out what we could do with the Moose Lodge, EDA did not have the funding for it. That's when the opportunity came up to look at it. So if we can certainly look at that in the future, we'd want to take a look at those enterprise funds. At the time, the sanitary sewer fund had plenty of cash there that we could then take that over. It all depends on the upcoming projects and what we have, so we'd have to take a deep look at the 10-year projections on what that fund balance would be, what we need the funding for, and then how quick we're going to turn around and pay it back. So it is definitely a mechanism, but
Yeah, that was because we didn't have the funding in our EDA. So
Correct.
that was something that we used.
yes.
Very
But
creative.
as you
That
can,
was-
oh, sorry.
No, that was very creative to do that.
As you can see over the 10-year period, 11-year period, it's going to be $993,000 of interest. So that's quite a bit of interest off of about $1 million loan.
So we'll get it paid off.
Okay, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. I do agree, and I like the idea of transferring our fund balance over. If we're exceeding our state's requirement, I mean, we've taxed those fundings from our constituents already. I think that's fair to our constituents to make sure that we're making those money work for our city. So I do like that idea to really kickstart this. Looking into this numbers 10 years from now, we're going to have this is the war chest. That's right. This is how I look at it, because without this, we can't do and can't be intentional in the work that we want to do. So I think getting this kick-started is going to be a really good thing for the EDA and Maplewood. So I do like that idea.
Thanks. There are 2 points of feedback that staff have asked for on page 43. You wanted to know, the first one was, and I want to thank staff for bringing forward options for us to talk about. The first one had to do with our LAHA money, and that Ms. Parr, can you tell us, LAHA is such a funny acronym, it sounds like it's a joke, but it's real money that we are receiving from the state. Can you explain what LAHA is?
You bet. Thank you, Madam President, Mayor, and members of the EDA and Council. LAHA is Local Affordable Housing Aid, and that is money that is specifically from sales. Those proceeds come to us, and we are able to use those in specific ways to maintain or grow our affordable housing. Basically, it's to allow people to have housing. They have to fall, and I specifically put those in the staff reports you could see. It's a little bit different if it's home ownership or if it's rental, but there's a specific requirement in regards to the level of income and some other things that come into play in relation to it.
Thank you. And for those watching and that are interested, in 2024, we received $221,506 in LAHA funding, and in 2025, we will receive $587,000, $587,609, so it is real money. And in terms of looking, how can we best utilize this, you brought forward representatives from MNHRA to talk about the creation of an affordable single-family rental program, or Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity for an affordable single-family home ownership program. And I guess, you wanted our feedback. My definite preference is with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity for an affordable single-family home ownership program. I am really interested in helping members of our community get into home ownership to develop generational wealth, and I think that's the way to go. There are many other programs having to do with rental housing, and we certainly have, I believe we've got adequate rental housing in Maplewood. I really want to focus on home ownership. That would be my preference. So Councilmember Villavicencio, Commissioner Cave has her light on, so I'm going to ask you, and I'll ask everybody what your preference is so that we can give feedback to staff between those two options.
Sure, I'd concur with what the mayor said for the exact same reasons for the home ownership.
Commissioner Juniman.
What she said and what you said.
Okay. Or you could say ditto, ditto.
All right, ditto, if that makes you feel better.
Okay, there you go. Commissioner Lee.
All right, I'm going to continue that. What the mayor said, what Commissioner Rebecca Cave said, and what Commissioner Juniman said, ditto.
It sounds like we are in concurrence. Commissioner Villavicencio, your thoughts?
Yes, I certainly agree with everyone on the council here about the home ownership. I feel that, it's a good project and it's something that builds wealth in our community. Although I will say that my opinion leans more towards the rental housing project of 80% of the greater of the state or area median income as determined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, just because I know that the most marginalized people in Maplewood are still most likely renters, and I know that that need will always be there. So those are them. Yep.
So thank you. Does that give you sufficient input from staff?
Thank you, it's
or
very
from us?
helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And then, number 2, is there an interest in moving forward with a dedicated EDA levy, and what percentage of levy would be supported? I will start off by saying, yes, I think that a dedicated EDA levy is a good idea. The percentage, I'm not certain, because I want to look at that transfer in and see what might that balance be so that we are not taxing, until we know more about the budget and what we might need for a levy, adding on an EDA levy, I want some certainty before I kind of identify a number that I'm content with. Does that make sense? Commissioner Cave?
Yes to the levy, and I was thinking, at max 2%, but it all depends on the budget and everything, so.
Okay. Commissioner Juniman?
Yes to a levy, maximum of 2%, depending on what the budget says.
Okay. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I do support the levy also, and that was kind of my same question is, if you can break down what the transfer would do, and potentially in different amount of, if we were to transfer X, Y, and Z, what the levy would be and the cost of everything is. I think I would like to see a good breakdown of that.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Villavicencio?
I concur with the other council members.
Okay, great. Then,
Nope, that was it.
Mr. Sable, is there anything else on this subject matter?
No, I want to say I appreciate that. That was a lot in a very short amount of time, and I really appreciate it. In listening to the conversation, I'm going to look to Mr. Rubin, I think, and Ms. Parr will kind of put together a scenario of probably 5 different scenarios of $1 million transfer in equals this type of levy, a $500,000 transfer in equals this type of levy, and we'll show you the variations because it is a moving target, and you're right, all of this falls in the context of the actual general fund budget, which is also a conversation that we're going to have in 2 weeks. So we'll prepare a handful of scenarios that you can see what that would look like, and I think we'll give you as much information as you need to make an informed choice.
Appreciate that. I think it helps us make better decisions, so thank you. Moving on, next we have the Maplewood, wait a second. I need to adjourn the EDA. Thank you again, City Clerk Sint, for helping me with this concurrent meeting. I am going to, as the president, I'm adjourning our EDA meeting. It is done. And now we are going to continue with our city manager workshop, the new business agenda item, which is, the first is the YMCA. Mr. Sable, you're going to kick this off.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Back to a single meeting, which I appreciate. This is a discussion item that is largely information only, but it does have cost implications going forward. And so, as you know, the city of Maplewood owns the YMCA Community Center building. We did a facility condition assessment report to try to see what, as the owner of the property, what our responsibilities would be to bring that building up to a modern standard. This does not have any recommendations or directions going forward, because I think ultimately, once we have the discussion, you can see the order of magnitude of the problem. Staff can then go and develop a couple of scenarios that could potentially address some of those gaps. I'll just note, one obvious source of potential solution is to do a very large general fund levy and just make it part of the business of owning buildings. That's one sort of extreme example. There's lots of other examples for opportunities to fund this, and none of this happens without a partnership with the YMCA. So if you're okay with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Darrow to talk about it.
Great. Mr. Darrow.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mike. This is our second meeting. If you remember, maybe 4 months ago, we invited the Y to come to a meeting, talk about their programming. And at that time, we talked about the lease that the city signed in 2016. And Katie Lowe from the Y is here, so we want to thank Katie for being here. We mentioned at that meeting that we'd come back in the summer and talk about the facility itself. So this building was built in the early 90s. It's about 90,000 square feet, and for context, that's about 2 acres of space in that building. 31 years old, roughly, and so we went out about 2 months ago and asked Leo A. Daly, and Cindy is here with Leo A. Daly to answer any questions, to provide us with a very comprehensive facility management plan. And as you can imagine, and as you saw, as we did send this out about a week ago, there's a lot of different elements to this. Tonight we want to hear from you, general questions that you have, what things that you may want further explained, and then we'll talk about the next step of this is to come back with, as Mike said, just some general ideas on what the future might look like. So tonight is an opportunity to highlight questions that you have. We also want to mention, as you know, about 2 months ago, there was a gym floor project that the city, in collaboration with the Y, undertook. That funding for that project was about $141,000 for the gym floor. And that project is a shared cost between the city and the Y. And as you have heard through updates and our conversation today, there continues to be flooding in that floor. So the new gym floor was scheduled to be completed in August. We've pushed that back because we need to get additional imaging of what that looks like, what the cause is. And so we're awaiting that report, and that could be another a month to 2 months to determine the findings there as well. So this lengthy report is intended to be a finding of fact. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you have. Those that require additional information, I'll invite Cindy to come up and ask as well.
Thank you. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of discussion about this. I really appreciate the fact that you sent this to us early. It was 91 pages to digest, and I really appreciated not having to read it again while we were getting ready for this council meeting. I appreciated being able to study it in advance. You know, this is a huge commitment It's a 31-year-old building, and we know that in Minnesota, with our weather and with aging structures, this was built with 1990s technology. It was, we've done what we can. We partnered with the Y, and I think that that has been a very successful partnership. And now the building really needs some work to the tune of $16 million to $20 million. And that includes 5% annual inflation. That is real money. And council members, we have a big decision here. This is not a decision that we can kick down the road. We need to be very wise about this. And this is spent over a period of 20 years. This is not something that, we would have to spend immediately. And that's $16 to $20 million is basically repairing, replacing, upgrading the systems of the building that it's like maintaining your home. Eventually you're going to need a new furnace. Eventually you're going to need new air conditioning, and you're going to need a new appliance. And, you might need a roof if you get many more storms like we had last night. But this is a much bigger building. The fact that it is, what did you say, 90,000 square feet? And it's something that we want, we need to maintain it because it is a city asset, but we need to figure out its future. And that's really the role of this council members, of our council. And so I want to be very intentional about it. And because this is such a big question, in my discussions with Mr. Sable today, trying to finance something like this, in my mind, this is not something that we can levy our way out of. Because on top of that $16 to $20 million, that's the estimate, and that's for repairs. That's not for a complete redesign. That's not for creating a new space. It is basically to effectively and efficiently make sure all the systems are running and that we are maintaining the building in the best way that we can. On top of all of that, there are operating costs every year. And our operating costs on top of the $16 to $20 million, it's like $250,000 to $350,000?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The current agreement that we have with the YMCA calls for a $250,000 contribution towards capital improvements of the facility itself. Post-COVID, we were able to actually use some of that money for operating expenses as well as they were transitioning through the worldwide pandemic. So the current amount is about $250,000 towards capital expenses in the building ongoing, and I'll just note that lease expires at the end of 2026, so there'll have to be a renegotiation with the Y about what that would look like.
Right. So these are very big decisions, and I talked to Mr. Sable today about what can we do to get information from our community, because I see this is a community center. And how does our community view the community center? We know that it is it's not just our asset, it is a regional asset. Many people come from other places to come and use the community center. And I asked Mr. Sable to be prepared to explain what are some ways that moving forward, we could finance changes in the community center, and whether or not our community wants to do that. Quite frankly, we don't know what is the temperature of the community, because we all are going to be asked to pay for it. And what is the temperature of our community? So I asked Mr. Sable if he could identify ways that, and this is not something new. Other communities that have community centers struggle with this very same issue as well. So we are not, on the cutting edge here of anything. We're trying to figure out how much does our community love this, and are they willing to pay for it, and how can we pay for it? There's a lot of things that are unanswered. So, Mr. Sable, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure, Mayor, as I said, so the first and most obvious way is to do a bond issuance of, say, $20 million and then pay the ongoing debt service with general fund levy. That's a way to do it. There's a second option that's available that the city of Apple Valley recently did, where they did a parks referendum. They actually put a referendum question to the voters, similar how it's probably more common with school districts, but they actually did a parks referendum to do their community pool and some of their gymnasium spaces and their park spaces. That is an option to have a direct community vote on a referendum. A third option is asking the legislature for permission to turn on a local option sales tax, which would then be a ballot question to voters to say, do you want to raise your own sales tax in order to fund this thing? I'll note that the city of Bloomington recently did that 2 years ago, and the city of Roseville did it just in the last election cycle. So it's common for cities to pursue that. There was previously a moratorium on cities doing that. That has since expired, so that is an option. But you do have to pass the test of its regional significance. The legislature likes to make sure that it's a project that serves beyond your boundaries, and I think in this case it would, but it is still a question that would require a majority vote of the legislature, both House and Senate, and be signed by the governor. So there is a second threshold of approvals. But those are the three most obvious answers. Right? I'm sure we could creatively come up with a fourth and a fifth, but in terms of what your legal authority is now, that would be the three most likely.
Okay. In terms of the five of us making a decision that we are going to seek a bond for this, I feel that is beyond what I would be comfortable doing. I think I really want to hear from our community about what their temperature is, what their comfort level is. And I'll just remind people, I kept going back to this, the study, $20 million doesn't get us a wow factor. It gets us upgraded, working facilities, the gym floor, whatever the water problem that's underneath it, it gets that fixed. But it doesn't, let's say, we're going to completely revamp and add on, and we're going to do all of these other fancy things. That's way beyond the $20 million. That's not what we're even looking at. So this is, as the way I see this is maintaining a building that is a very big structure that we are responsible for. So, and we have to be responsible for it. So in terms of a referendum to the voters, what would tell us a little bit more about that referendum?
So I'll just use in the most recent example. So the city of Apple Valley put forward two referendum ballot questions. One, authorize the city to issue general obligation bonds in the amount of $66 million to fund improvements to parks, recreation facilities, and trail systems. Yes or no? And the second question was actually contingent on number one, authorize the city to issue a general obligation bonds to fund the $6.5 million to fund the replacement of the community pool. So it really is just a question before the voters of, do you want to do this or not? And then you can walk through the implications. And so there, it can be that simple or that complicated, but it was a question that showed up on the general election ballot in November of 2023, technically. It was their city election.
Okay. And then another question, if this council were to decide that we would want to do a local sales tax, how do we know, how could we project how much money would be, we could expect from a local sales tax?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So the University of Minnesota has an economist who works for the University of Minnesota Extension who specializes in doing sales tax calculations. I've never met him, but I've spoken to him on the phone before. He's brilliant, and knows all of the data, and so he's sort of the one reliable source for providing estimates. I know that lots of cities use his analysis, and so as you know, the shoppers and people who buy things don't stop at boundaries. So people from Oakdale shop in Maplewood, and people in Maplewood shop in Woodbury. And so what they try to track is the movement of money across geographies, and they do a really good job of calculating what that would be. And so if this was a direction that the council wanted to pursue further, we could, as staff, order a report that calculates what percentage of that money comes from Maplewood residents and what would come from outside. I'll just, right, having a regional mall generally draws in more people than comes in. So I don't know what the number would be, but it seems likely that it would be a higher percentage we paid for by outside of the city. And I say that also because the city of Maplewood has a higher concentration of car dealerships, and that generates significantly more sales tax. And so not everybody in Maplewood buys cars in Maplewood. Lots of people from around the region come here to buy cars. So long story longer, there is an opportunity for us to analyze what that would look like.
And a local sales tax would also apply to anyone then who is, how would that actually work, a local sales tax? It would be a Maplewood sales tax dedicated to, and, you know, we wouldn't be limited necessarily to the 20 million over 20 years. Actually, we could actually do improvements on the Y instead of just maintaining or, you know, doing the what we need to keep the building functional.
That's correct.
Okay. So, well, council members, I want to hear from the rest of you as to what you think. I'm not in favor of doing I don't see that we certainly can't levy our way out of this to get sufficient funding over the next 20 years for our community center. We need to look at other types of avenues. But I really strongly encourage everyone that we need to bring this to our community, and we need to talk to the community about how do they view the community center? How do they value it? And help us figure out the best way that we can fund this. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks to the staff and the team for putting this extensive report together. It was a really good report. You know, there's a couple things that come through my mind when I think about our community center, and thanks to the Y for being one of our partner there. I think for the Y, when I think about the Y, it holds a special place in my heart. I share with a lot of people. I used to swim in there as a kid, and now I still swim in there. I was just in there 2 weeks ago with my kids. So it is a special place in our community. But the piece is not everyone in our city uses the facility, given that it's a membership base right now. So levying our entire community to pay for the community center where you have to get a membership for to be a part of and to participate in, I would not be comfortable with that. I think we need to have extensive community engagement to see if that is something that does make sense. So Mayor, your point earlier that I'm on board with you on that, so I would not be comfortable moving forward with a levy on that piece. I think for the park referendum, it's the same case. Not everyone uses the community center, so I think that falls in the same line where I would not support a referendum to just fix up our community center. I do, though, support the conversation of having a potential local sales tax. I think that's something that we don't have right now in the city of Maplewood, and I think that's something that can benefit us significantly. I pay sales tax when I go to the other side of the street, right into St. Paul and other cities. I'm helping them build their city. You know, folks in St. Paul are coming to the city of Maplewood, and not that we're punishing you for coming to our city. We want you to come into our city, but we want you to help us build our city. I think that's a huge plus for us here, and it's not just for our community center then, and it's not just Maplewood residents paying for the Maplewood Community Center or other improvements in our city, but folks that are coming into our city are helping us with that piece. And with the local sales tax, it goes way beyond just the community center. You know, we have a lot of other parks that are also aging in our city, a lot of other infrastructure that this can potentially really help, and I would be in support of continuing to have the conversation of what does a local sales tax look like for us here in the city of Maplewood. I just see the benefit of it. But back to this particular piece, though, with the report that's been provided here, it's going to cost us $16 to $20 million, council and mayor. But what's important for me are some of the immediate priorities. Safety is number one for me. So if we have to take care of some of those safety components right away, I think there's ways that we should discuss as a council to take a look at that. I mean, folks are in there every day, regardless of what we're going to do on our end. So safety is number one. We need to see what that cost is going to look like. We need to see what we need to put up out front as a council, as a city, as a community. We want folks who are in there to be in there and to come out safe. So that'd be my thought.
I really appreciate the way the report was written so that we do know very clearly what we need to do to make sure that the community center is safe for everyone who visits our community center. And this, I don't believe Maplewood has ever had a local sales tax on anything. And I know that one of the things that can be done is at the local sales tax. I know other cities have sales taxes that expire after so many years. But it's, I would like to hear other people's thoughts, and I think Councilmember Cave, you were next.
Thank you. I really like what Chambry said, and I would concur with that. The bonding and everything is, of course, it's a council decision, but I'm not really comfortable with that. I would like to see options out there for what sales tax options are. Is it just a percentage? Is it so many years? What are all the things that we would include in it? But on top of all of that, before I get too far, it's in community engagement. And I would agree that I need to hear from the community about this because, yes, we're ultimately the decision makers here, but not everybody, uses it. This is a lot of money. Great report, by the way, detailed, but just, I was going through it and just, I couldn't believe the money. I mean, $600,000 just for, and it's not like you're asking us, but just for immediate priority for safety there. I mean, so, I can't wait for this to get out so our community can see this. But $600,000 just to make it safe. I mean, that's, wow.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and just to make things safe, not even up to par and on all the other things. And the high priority, it's just, the list goes on, and it's unfortunate. But I do want to see what our community thinks of the community center, and also our staff. I do want to get, solutions on what other options do we have. What if, our community comes back and says this isn't something that we feel comfortable putting a sales tax. We don't feel comfortable in, keeping it going for some reason. We have to look at those too. And if we don't, what are the options there? I want to see that too. So I can't predict what the community is going to say, but you have to look at all ends of the spectrum there. And to get this out to our community and find ways, I know Joe can get it out as quick as anybody, but you talk about voting, and we don't have any votes coming up. So even though you can put something on a ballot, that won't be for 2 years. So I don't know how we get around that, because I don't know if you say, oh, there's a vote and for nothing but this, nothing but what the community wants. So I guess we have to get creative and find out, how do we get a hold of as many community people? We need to spend the money.
Mr. Sable, do you want to explain the procedure for a local sales tax? Many other cities have it. If anyone goes into Minneapolis or St. Paul, you're paying an entertainment tax on everything that you do in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so we're paying to help build their city. This is a regional amenity, and this, as I started off by saying, that seems to be one of the most logical things that we could do if our community wants to continue to support that. So procedurally, as I understood what you said, we would have to go to the legislature first, and then we would have to go to our community. We'd obviously have to go to the community and talk about this and why we would need to go to the legislature for additional taxing authority. But can you frame up that a little bit more on what that looks like?
I will try my best. Thank you, Mayor and council members. This is when I wish Ron were attending workshop items.
Yeah.
But you're correct. So the legislature typically convenes in an even year. So they would start in February and they would conclude in the third Monday in May. So we would have to have a legislative authority. And so if you're granted legislative authority to have the ballot question, the council would then approve the legislative authority to do that, and then set an election date. Typically, it would be the November election would be the time frame to do that. The city is not allowed to campaign or support or promote the initiative. They are allowed to provide factual information, like the tax would be this % at this many years, and the benefit would be X. So you're allowed to put out general information, but you're not allowed to promote it as a sort of I'll use the phrase campaign in the sense it's not a campaign, it's just factual data about what the ballot question is and what the end result would be. And then that question would go before the voters, and then if approved, then that sales tax would then click on beginning in January of that next calendar year, and then you would be accruing the money, and at which point then you could let out the bonds and then make the improvements. So you're right, there is a lag time between the decision to get a sales tax and when you get the money is roughly, I would say, 18 months before you're anywhere close to starting. So procedurally, that's it. And I without being a lawyer, I will want to ask Ron sort of his opinion on timing and sequencing of the elections. So I'll put that caveat out there as well.
We will get additional information from Ron on that. Council members, I think that Councilmember Juniman, and then we're going to have to move on. We've got one more agenda item. Oh, and Councilmember Villavicencio will come to you too.
Okay, well, as the unofficial wet blanket, if we just look at the immediate needs and the high priority needs, that means no longer than 5 years out, you're looking at over $15 million, according to these numbers. And that is mainly for safety and then for the mechanical systems and pool upgrades, which if you don't do those things, then you can't operate. So this isn't a wish list, this is a must-do list. So that's the first thing that bothers me about it. I mean, we can't just say, oh, well. I think that's been said a few times in the past, but not now. And then on the other side of that is, okay, if the community comes back and says, well, we're not interested anymore, you just can't let a building stand there, then what are we going to do with it? If the community says, no, I don't want you to spend 10 cents, then what's our responsibility? I mean, it can't just stand there and magically disappear.
Well, I think then we're looking down a different avenue. I think we're looking at, okay, if our community does not want to support this, and with the local sales tax, it would be more than the community. It would be the
Right.
Okay, but if that's the clear message, then what our community is saying is that we don't support the community center, and we would have to be looking at selling the facility.
And that's why I brought it up. I mean, it's like,
Absolutely.
we can't not look at that
That's why
piece.
we need to talk to the community and find out. And we need to do that. Absolutely, we need to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
That's,
I think everyone
You have my opinion.
recognizes how important it is to get community input about that, to give some guidance, because this is a huge commitment, and we need to hear from our community about it. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Well, Mayor, yes, I agree with you and my other council members, and in saying that probably the most important first step is finding out what our community wants and desires, but also when I was going through this on my own in preparation for the meeting, my thought was to the YMCA. If these improvements are made, I guess my thoughts are what alongside it is the YMCA going to do to make sure that the community is fully involved, because based on Councilmember Lee's comments, there is a bit of discrepancy on the YMCA. If, like, for instance, you go to White Bear Lake, that you have to be a member to be in. But in Maplewood, it is a community center, so everyone should be able to go to the YMCA in Maplewood and participate in the community center, whether you're a member or not. So I guess maybe some clarification on that. But also, I would like to know, if we do all these improvements, what is the Y going to do to improve their connection to the community?
Excellent questions, Mr. Sable.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm going to try to, so I appreciate the timeliness of the discussion and know that, in terms of sequencing choices, I wrote down a couple of things. What is I'll call it the wet blanket option of, what is the potential value of a building with no owners or no tenants? And I meant that with all due respect, Councilmember. I mean that. It was a great way to phrase it. And we'll calculate the value of an estimated sales tax just to see if there's enough sales tax to even fund the repairs, because quite honestly, I don't actually know that answer. We will sketch out the safety first short-term items of how we could potentially fund those. We will develop an outreach and engagement plan, and then we will have a conversation with the YMCA about community inclusion and partnership going forward. And I think those are the only 5 things. And so we will prepare a response and bring that back to you with a range of options for sort of next discussions.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
And this will be a very big discussion for us that there will be a lot to grapple with. But, council members, I look forward to working through this with the rest of you. So moving on to our last agenda item for our workshop, the charitable gambling discussion. Ms. Knudsen, thank you very much. I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm here, Lois Knudsen. I'm the Senior Administrative Manager, and tonight I'm here to talk about our charitable gambling program. And just a little bit of a background, as you know, there are many organizations throughout Maplewood who run charitable gambling operations. Those are things such as the bingo hall, as well as pull tabs. So they have to be licensed with the city, and then 10% of their earnings comes back to the city. The state statute says that it's up to the city to decide where that money goes, but that it has to go to other nonprofits. So that has traditionally been a council decision. So tonight we're just going to give you a little bit of background about the program, some of the history, some of the statistics. This is our award history. The numbers in blue, that's from 2016 to 2020. Each of those years the city gave out $30,000. There were no categories. Anybody, any nonprofit could apply for those funds. The orange, that is the year that was most affected by COVID. So in any given year, you were determining the funding for the next year. So in 2020, our money was way down, so we only had $15,000 to give out in 2021. And the council at that time determined to give all of that money to the YMCA for their programs. They had a lot of programs supporting the community throughout COVID. And then the green in 2021, after that, for funds starting in 2022, we made some changes to the program. We identified some priority categories and developed a rotating schedule. So in those years, the funding varied from $30,000 to $50,000 each year. And then the pink is the upcoming for 2026. We discussed it with finance, and there is once again $50,000 to disperse in 2026. The past modifications in August of 2021, the council identified, we did some surveys, they identified their priority needs of where they thought the money should go, and then we established a 3-year rotating schedule. So year 1, social supports and senior citizen services. Year 2, youth programs and community engagement events. Year 3, environment and natural resources and safety programs. We are currently 2025, this year is social supports and senior citizen services. Going ahead next year into 2026, if we stay on this same program, our focus would be youth programs and community engagement events. I looked back and rewatched the council meeting from then. The goal, according to council members, was they wanted to prioritize larger amounts that they felt would make a more significant impact for an organization and the people it serves. This is just the award amounts. Before the change, the amounts range from $200 a year to a max of $4,120, with an average award amount of $1,509. Since we made the changes, the smallest amount given was $500, and that's exactly what the organization asked for. And then a max we gave out was $20,000. The average amount since this program has been changed was $4,899.